Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm going to be talking about the episode from Season 8. This is Episode 8, The Lost Sheep. If you're enjoying these, please do hit like and subscribe. The Lost Sheep was written by E.F. Wallengren, who was the son of one of our writer-producers, Claire Whitaker, and he wrote a number of episodes of The Waltons. It was directed by Walter Alsman, who started off as an assistant director on the show and then had the opportunity to direct a number of episodes. This episode marks the return of Ashley Longworth Jr., who we first met in the Season 7 episode, The Legacy. In this case, Ashley has returned from war to court Aaron again. And I noticed that he is not wearing his white uniform. That was the first thing that stood out to us in The Legacy, was this gorgeous man in this white uniform. Now he's a gorgeous man in sort of a tan uniform. The other thing I noticed as he's coming around this car is it looks like he sort of comes around, does a quick glance down of where that mark is that he needs to hit. That could be not correct about what's happening there, but that's what it looked like to me. He then is trying to get Aaron's attention. He is like throwing little pebbles up. I've been asked about the placement of the windows, and I have stated that the girls' bedroom was in the middle. And in this case, indeed, you do see that that is where he is trying to get Aaron's attention, is that middle window. Here we see the case with this window of interior to exterior set. Obviously, as Ashley is outside, we would be shooting on the exterior set. When they show the inside of the bedroom, we're on the soundstage. But sometimes, like where you see Serena and Elizabeth looking out, that is also shot on the soundstage because you can see into that window and you can see the furniture in the bedroom. So they would have shot that at just basically ground level because the bedrooms were on just the soundstage. Even the upper bedrooms were on the ground floor of the soundstage. So they would just put the camera down low and tilt it up to give the impression of looking up into the window at those two girls. So we go back and forth between those two sets. Ashley has a ring and he proposes to Aaron, and there is more kissing. Mary talked a lot about how Aaron did a lot of kissing and crying. Well, she has stated that in this case, she didn't mind all that kissing with Ashley. The Waltons are looking out for the Baldwin's house as they are theoretically out of town, and that is where Ashley is staying. Aaron knows where the key is. The family finds out that Aaron left in the middle of the night with Ashley, and she is not back here at breakfast time. John and Olivia take off to go find out what's going on with Aaron and Ashley. Now, here you get a little continuity issue because Olivia leaves the house wearing this sort of tannish brown dress. Now, all of a sudden, they're driving to the Baldwins, and she is now wearing sort of a bluish gray dress. Then they get out of the car. She goes to the door. When we get inside the house, she is once again wearing that brown dress. So just somehow it got mixed up because these would have been shot on different days. The kitchen would have been shot on one day. The exterior of driving would have been shot at a different time, and the arrival at the Baldwin's house and the walk up to their porch, because that was even on the ranch lot, which was a couple blocks from Warner Brothers, so definitely a different day. And then the interior of the Baldwin's house would have been shot on the soundstage, but likely on a different day. So 3 different days involved in the filming of this little sequence. Upon confronting Aaron and Ashley, Aaron tells Mama and Daddy that they're getting married on Saturday, which is a bit of a shock to Olivia and John. And then we see Serena's at the Godsey store, and she's blabbing about how Aaron disappeared in the middle of the night with Ashley. So her tattling is going to cause a little bit of an issue. We're having a dinner scene. Ashley's been invited to dinner. John's carving ham, and Olivia is tossing a salad. So we're having at least ham and salad at dinner. Ashley arrives and is invited to sit in Grandpa's seat, which had not really been happening since Will passed away. That seat was always just held empty. But in this case, they decided that Ashley would be okay to sit there. And Jonathan Frakes talked about what an honor he realized that was to have been offered that seat that was Will's. And John asks Ashley to say grace. Ashley is having a crisis of faith and finds that he simply cannot do that, and he gets up and leaves the table. This porch scene between Aaron and Ashley would have been shot on the interior soundstage because you can see into the house. And at this point, he admits that he is an atheist. He can't be married in a church, and Aaron says, I can't tell my mother that. So it is creating a bit of a dilemma for her. Here we see that Rose is working on Aaron's wedding dress, and supposedly Aaron says it is grandma's and that each of the girls could wear it for their wedding. But this is not the same dress that Mary Ellen wore at her wedding. Now, although she says the sleeves would have to be lengthened because, Aaron is so tall, there's no way that the dress that I wore would have fit Aaron because she's taller than me, longer arms. She's just, bigger. And nor would I fit into the dress that Grandma wore because I'm bigger than Grandma. So it was actually 3 different dresses. You see the dress that Mary Ellen was married in, and you've seen the dress that they were fixing for Aaron. And then you also see the dress that Grandma wore at her anniversary, which was, supposedly the dress that she wore to get married. So 3 different dresses that they are saying are all the same dress. Ashley has told Aaron that he has promised himself he will never set foot in a church again. And Aaron is upset about this and caught in the middle because Mama's making arrangements with Reverend Bradshaw. And she tells Mama that, about what's going on with Ashley. And they talk about John and Olivia and their different views on religion. But Olivia says that John is a very religious man, even though he doesn't go to church. So they have argued about this, in fact, John and Olivia, over the seasons. We've seen that. Olivia confronts Ashley about his lack of faith and says that he isn't being fair to Aaron. And next thing we know, Aaron is concerned that they've both changed and that they should maybe take some time before they jump into this marriage. And Ashley agrees and calls off the marriage. And so Aaron basically blames Mom and says, I hope you're happy. The wedding's off. Ashley comes to talk to John, and John says he's always taught his children that they should respect the beliefs of other people. And so, and then Daddy has a talk with Aaron. So it's really kind of a number of people in the family are getting involved in this situation and trying to help sort through it for Ashley and Aaron. Jason and Ben go to the Dewdrop Inn and run into Ashley, who is now there drunk with Irma Jean. Back at home, Aaron is very upset, and Elizabeth comes in and they get into it and end up having a pillow fight. So some angst, some emotion, some fun with a pillow fight. We got a little bit of everything going on. Aaron goes to the Baldwins to return Ashley's ring and finds he's throwing a party and that Irma Jean is there, and she basically throws the ring at her, says she can have it. In the subplot, Serena has been tagging along with Elizabeth and driving her crazy, and she's kind of told her to stop and has really kind of hurt Serena's feelings, and so she kind of apologizes to her and says that yes, she does want her to be with her, just not all the time, and that they both need to have some space now and then. So Serena feels better about that. Corbeth is busy wanting to meddle again, so she goes to the Baldwins to check up what's going on over there, and finds that there's a complete mess going on there, and she's just nosing around for gossip. Now, this, again, would have been shot on an interior sound stage. Now, you see the front porch. You see as the door is open out into the yard. Now, when we saw the exterior, there was a brick porch there. And here we see that there is just sort of like dirt on the sound stage, and that all these sort of this foliage that is evident as the door is open is not the same as the way it was on the exterior set. So these are just little things about having to make that move between an interior set and an exterior set, as far as the editing and how one goes about shooting it, and how I can see what was shot on the soundstage and what wasn't. But if I wasn't looking for it and I didn't know it, as I'm sure none of you did, it would not have been evident to you. So when Corbett does arrive, as she's standing at the door, she's again, throwing off her airs and stuff, and says she has brought a French dish for Ashley, and she mentions its name in French, and he replies in French, and she has a fabulous reaction where she has no idea what he has said.
I brought you a crepe Florentine pour votre appétit.
Un petit quelque chose de la poutinière locale?
I beg your pardon?
Come in.
Ashley kind of lulls Corbett in. She thinks that he's being very cooperative and everything, and he explains, how he's just, he's madly in love with someone, and he says it's Corbett, and, so that's how he sort of handles her meddling, and she's, of course, shocked and put off and goes back and tells Ike, and then Ike and Corbett run to John and tell him that Ashley has been rude and insulting and made a pass at Corbett. So they head off to talk to Ashley, and Ashley finally explains to John and Aaron basically what happened to him in the war and what it was like for him having to kill other men. And John explains what God means to him and how he was able to get there for himself in terms of his own personal beliefs. And then, as the episode ends, Ashley is going to be leaving. And the narration says that he came back to visit often. And of course, we did indeed see Ashley come back at a later time. But sadly, Ashley and Aaron never did end up as a couple. In this episode, besides the actual family members, we had, a number of our regular recurring actors back. Joe and Ronnie Claire as Ike and Corbett, Peggy Ray as Rose, Leslie Winston, who was now a regular family member as Cindy Walton, Martha Nix, and Keith Mitchell as Serena and Jeffrey. Now, I've been asked about Keith's name, Keith Mitchell. At the time he was doing the Waltons, he was using the name Keith Mitchell. He is the grandson of Jackie Coogan, so there was a point in time where Keith changed his name professionally to Keith Coogan, which is why you might be confused about the different names. Of course, we had the fabulous Jonathan Frakes back as Ashley Longworth Jr., always a thrill to have Jonathan with us working. And then Elise Caitlin was Irma Jean Small. Thank you for joining me for this segment of Behind the Scenes at the Waltons about the season 8 episode, The Lost Sheep. I'll be back with more Behind the Scenes of the Waltons, more Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.